The quiet hum of the life support systems was the only sound that pierced the eerie silence aboard the aging monitoring station. Michael Donovan had spent the last 3 centuries in cryogenic hibernation, his consciousness frozen in time as he dutifully watched over the distant stars. Now, a sudden alarm blared, jolting him awake from his long slumber. Donovan's eyes flew open as the stasis pod hissed and the lid slid back. He gasped, sucking in a deep breath of recycled air as his body adjusted to the return of gravity. Disoriented, he stumbled out of the pod, his muscles protesting after so long in stasis. "Computer, report," he croaked, his voice raspy from disuse. "Urgent distress signal detected from Sector 7 Gamma." The station's AI responded calmly. "Source is an advanced alien civilization, approximately 200 light-years distant." Donovan's brow furrowed as he made his way to the main monitoring station. This was highly unusual. No alien race had ever managed to establish contact or send a distress call this far from their homeworld. He quickly scanned the readouts, his heart racing as the implications began to sink in. "Bring up the sensor data," he commanded, sinking into the worn command chair. Holographic displays flashed to life, revealing a detailed image of the distant star system. But instead of the vibrant, thriving civilization he expected, Donovan saw only destruction. Massive orbital facilities lay in ruins, debris fields scattered across the system. Scans detected no signs of life on the planet's surface, only desolation, and the faint traces of a catastrophic event. Catastrophic power failure detected on the primary continental landmass. Population estimates indicate the entire civilization is at risk of imminent extinction, the AI reported. Donovan's hands gripped the armrests, his knuckles turning white. For centuries, he had remained in hibernation, entrusted with the sacred duty of watching over the universe, ready to act should any civilization face an existential threat. But this was beyond anything he had ever anticipated. "How long do they have?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "Based on current resource depletion and environmental damage, the alien civilization has approximately 72 hours before total collapse," the AI responded. 72 hours. Donovan's mind raced, sifting through protocols and contingency plans that had been drilled into him during his training. But nothing could have prepared him for a scenario like this. An entire species on the brink of extinction, and he was the only one who could possibly intervene. He took a deep, steadying breath and turned back to the displays. The alien civilization was highly advanced, their technology far surpassing anything humanity had achieved in its own history. But with their infrastructure in ruins, they were powerless to save themselves. Donovan knew the risks of direct intervention. The delicate balance of non-interference that had governed his people's interactions with other species for centuries. The consequences of tampering with a developing civilization could be catastrophic. But as he watched the devastation unfold before him, he knew he could not simply stand by and let them perish. With a resolute nod, he turned to the AI. "Prepare the station for a long-range jump. I'm going to try and make contact." Acknowledged, the AI responded, calculating optimal trajectory and preparing the jump drive. "However, I must remind you of the prime directive and the risks involved in direct." "I'm aware of the risks," Donovan interrupted, his voice firm. "But I can't just let them die. Not if there's a chance I can help." He clenched his jaw, steeling himself for the difficult journey ahead. As the station's engines roared to life, Donovan gazed out at the stars, a determined glint in his eyes. He had been entrusted with the sacred duty of watching over the cosmos, and now, after centuries of lonely vigilance, his chance to make a difference had finally arrived. Whatever the consequences, he knew he had to try. The station lurched forward, its powerful engines propelling it through the void of space toward the distant alien homeworld. Donovan settled back into the command chair, his fingers flying across the controls as he prepared to make first contact. The fate of an entire civilization now rested on his shoulders, and he was determined not to fail. As the monitoring station hurtled through the blackness of space, Michael Donovan's mind raced with uncertainty. He had broken protocols that had governed his people's interactions for centuries, defying the Prime Directive in a desperate gambit to save an alien civilization on the brink of extinction. Donovan clutched the armrests of his command chair, his knuckles turning white as he stared intently at the holographic displays. The journey would take time, nearly 2 days at maximum speed, with the station's aging engines straining to their limits. Every second counted, and he knew the alien race had mere hours left before total collapse. "Computer, status report," he said, his voice terse. "We are maintaining maximum velocity, but will not reach the target system for another 44 hours. The AI responded. "Sensors indicate the situation on the alien homeworld continues to deteriorate rapidly." Donovan gritted his teeth, his mind racing to formulate a plan. He needed to make contact with the alien leaders, to convince them to trust him and accept his help. But with the vast distances involved, establishing clear communication would be a formidable challenge. "Prepare a series of pre-recorded transmissions," he instructed the AI, "in their native language if possible. We need to establish a dialogue as soon as we arrive." Acknowledged. Beginning linguistic analysis and message composition. As the AI set to work, Donovan turned his attention to the sensor data, studying the alien civilization's history and technological capabilities. Their society was highly advanced, with sprawling cities, vast orbital infrastructure, and a thriving interplanetary economy. But now it all lay in ruins, the victim of some catastrophic event that had crippled their power systems and left them helpless. Donovan's heart ached as he watched the slow but steady decline of the alien population, their numbers dwindling by the hour as resources were depleted and environmental damage escalated. They were a proud, resilient species, yet they faced extinction through no fault of their own. "Transmissions prepared and ready to broadcast," the AI announced, breaking the tense silence. "I've tailored the messages to appeal to their cultural values and emphasize our desire to help, while remaining cautious about revealing our true nature." Donovan nodded, his fingers hovering over the controls. "Initiate transmission. Let's hope they're willing to listen." The station's powerful communications array sprang to life, sending a series of encoded messages out into the void. Donovan held his breath, praying that the aliens would receive his desperate plea for cooperation. Minutes ticked by, each one feeling like an eternity. Then, just as Donovan was about to lose hope, a faint response flickered across the comms. "Computer, enhance and translate that signal," he ordered, leaning forward in his seat. The AI's processors whirred to life, sifting through the garbled data and reconstructing the alien transmission. Donovan's heart raced as the translation appeared on the display. "This is High Counselor Xilara of the Vanthali Confederation. We receive your message, unknown vessel. State your purpose and intention, or we will be forced to defend ourselves." Donovan took a deep breath, choosing his words carefully. "High Counselor Xilara, I am Michael Donovan, a representative of a distant civilization. We have detected your distress signal and are en route to your homeworld to offer assistance. Our intention is to help your people in this time of crisis, not to cause harm." He paused, waiting anxiously for a response. The silence seemed to stretch on for an eternity before the alien signal crackled to life once more. "Assistance. How could you possibly help us in our darkest hour? Our power systems have failed, our cities lie in ruin, and our people face extinction. What can an unknown entity such as yourself do to save us?" Donovan steeled himself, knowing that his next words could either forge a tenuous alliance or shatter any chance of cooperation. "High Counselor, I believe I can help you, but I will need your trust and cooperation. Please allow me to land on your homeworld and present my plan. Time is of the essence, and I fear your people may not have much longer." The line went silent once more, and Donovan held his breath, his gaze fixed on the flickering display. The fate of an entire civilization now hung in the balance, resting on the slim hope that the alien leaders would be willing to take a chance on this mysterious human interloper. After what felt like an eternity, the response finally came, tinged with a glimmer of desperate hope. "Very well, Michael Donovan. You may land your vessel on the surface of our homeworld. But know this, if your intentions prove false, we will not hesitate to defend ourselves, even in our weakened state. Time is indeed of the essence, so I urge you to make haste." Donovan let out a breath he hadn't realized he'd been holding, a small spark of relief igniting within him. "Understood, High Counselor. We will arrive as soon as possible." Donovan out. As the communications link closed, Donovan turned his attention back to the navigational controls, his expression grim but determined. The die had been cast, and now he had to convince the alien leaders to trust him with their very survival. The monitoring station's engines strained as it hurtled through the void of space toward the distant alien homeworld. Michael Donovan's gaze was fixed intently on the holographic displays, his mind racing to make sense of the dire situation unfolding before him. As the station closed in on its destination, the sensor data began to paint a clearer picture of the alien civilization's plight. Donovan pored over the readings, his brow furrowed in concentration. "Computer, summarize the key events leading up to the current crisis," he commanded, his voice taut with urgency. The AI's calm voice responded. According to the sensor data, the Vanthali Confederation was a highly advanced interstellar civilization. They had mastered sustainable energy production, interplanetary transportation, and sophisticated communication networks. Their cities were marvels of engineering, with towering spires and vast, interconnected habitats. Donovan nodded, his fingers tapping against the armrest as he listened intently. What happened to cause such widespread destruction? The sensor data indicates a catastrophic failure in the Vanthali's primary power grid, likely due to a cascading systems collapse. This triggered a domino effect, causing a complete breakdown of the civilization's critical infrastructure. Without power, their cities began to crumble, and environmental safeguards were disabled, leading to widespread ecological damage. Donovan's expression darkened as the grim details unfolded. And the population. Initial population estimates suggested a thriving civilization of over 10 billion individuals, the AI replied. However, current scans detect less than 2 million life signs remaining on the planet's surface. The rest have perished due to the loss of basic resources and shelter. Donovan's hands clenched into fists, his knuckles turning white. The thought of an entire civilization, reduced to a mere fraction of its former self, weighed heavily on him. These were a people with a rich history, a thriving culture, and a bright future, all of it snuffed out in a matter of days. "Can we determine the root cause of the power grid failure?" he asked, his voice tight with emotion. Analyzing the available data. The AI paused for a moment, its processors whirring. It appears the failure was not due to a natural disaster or external attack, but rather an internal systems malfunction. Specifically, the main power reactors experienced a critical cascade failure, triggering a catastrophic chain reaction that brought down the entire grid. Donovan leaned back in his chair, his mind racing. A systems failure of that magnitude. It would have to be a flaw in their core technology, something fundamental to their power generation. The Vanthali were renowned for their engineering prowess, so how could something like this happen? The AI responded. The available data suggests the power reactors were operating outside of their design parameters, likely due to unanticipated fluctuations in the fuel source or other environmental factors. This may have been exacerbated by a lack of redundancy or fail-safes in the system design. Donovan's brow furrowed as he digested this information. So, in essence, the very technology that powered their civilization became its undoing. A single point of failure that brought everything crashing down. Precisely, the AI confirmed. Without their primary power grid, the Vanthali were unable to maintain basic life support systems, environmental controls, or any of the infrastructure necessary for their civilization to function. The cascading failure led to the devastation we now observe. Donovan gazed out at the distant stars, his expression somber. They were so advanced, so confident in their mastery of technology. And in the end, it was their own hubris that led to their downfall. He turned his attention back to the displays, his eyes narrowing with determination. But they don't have to perish. Not if we can figure out a way to restore their power and stabilize their environment. There has to be a solution, some way to intervene and save them. The AI remained silent, its own protocols and safeguards preventing it from fully endorsing Donovan's course of action. But as the monitoring station closed in on the Vanthali homeworld, the human knew he had no choice but to try. Centuries of non-interference protocols be damned. He was the only one who could possibly save this doomed civilization, and he was determined to do whatever it took to ensure their survival. With renewed purpose, Donovan began recalibrating the station's systems, preparing for the treacherous landing ahead. The fate of an entire species now rested on his shoulders, and he was resolved to not let them down. As the monitoring station approached the Vanthali homeworld, Michael Donovan felt a growing sense of trepidation. The once vibrant planet now lay in ruin, its cities crumbling and its skies choked with swirling debris. The situation was even more dire than the sensor data had indicated. Donovan's fingers flew across the controls, his eyes narrowed in concentration. Computer, initiate landing procedures, optimizing for minimal environmental impact. Acknowledged, the AI responded. Commencing descent, landing site coordinates locked. Donovan watched in silence as the station began its perilous descent, navigating the treacherous atmospheric conditions. The ground grew closer, and he could see the devastation up close, collapsed infrastructure, lifeless bodies, and an eerie, deafening silence. His heart ached at the sight, and he steeled himself for the difficult task ahead. Centuries of non-interference protocols had been drilled into him, yet now he found himself poised to break those very rules in a desperate bid to save an entire civilization. Computer, prepare a secure communication channel to the Vanthali leadership, he said, his voice steady. I need to convince them to trust me and accept my help. Understood. Establishing a direct link to the High Counselor's command center. Donovan took a deep breath, his fingers hovering over the controls. This was it, the moment that would determine the fate of the Vanthali. If they refused his offer of assistance, there would be nothing he could do to stop their imminent demise. The communication link crackled to life, and a holographic image of a weary-looking alien appeared before him. Donovan recognized the being from their earlier exchange, High Counselor Xelara, the last remaining leader of the Vanthali Confederation. Michael Donovan, you have arrived. I must admit, I scarcely believed you would make it in time. Xelara's voice was laced with a mixture of hope and skepticism. High Counselor, I'm here, and I'm prepared to offer my assistance, Donovan replied, his tone earnest. But I need your cooperation and trust in order to have any chance of success. Xelara's eyes narrowed, and Donovan could see the anguish and desperation etched on the alien's face. And why should we trust you, an outsider from a civilization we know nothing about? Our people are dying, our cities crumbling. What could you possibly do to save us? Donovan leaned forward, his gaze unwavering. High Counselor, I understand your skepticism, but time is of the essence. My people have the knowledge and the resources to help you restore your power grid and stabilize your environment. But I can't do it alone. I need your cooperation and the full support of your remaining leadership. Xelara's expression darkened, and Donovan could see the internal struggle playing out on the alien's face. And what would this assistance cost us? Our sovereignty. Our way of life. Donovan shook his head emphatically. No, High Counselor, nothing of the sort. I'm simply offering to help, without any expectation of payment or allegiance. Your people's survival is the only thing that matters to me. The line went silent, and Donovan held his breath, waiting anxiously for Xelara's response. He knew he was asking the alien leader to take a tremendous leap of faith, to trust the words of a complete stranger in the face of such overwhelming devastation. After what felt like an eternity, Silara finally spoke, her voice tinged with resignation. "Very well, Michael Donovan. I will grant you permission to land your vessel and present your proposal to the remaining Vanthali leadership. But know this, if your intentions prove false, or if your actions in any way threaten the sovereignty of our people, we will not hesitate to defend ourselves, even in our weakened state." Donovan nodded solemnly. "I understand, High Counselor. I give you my word that my only goal is to help your people survive this crisis. I will do everything in my power to earn your trust." Xylara's expression softened slightly, a glimmer of hope sparking in her eyes. "Then we shall meet in person, and you can share your plan. Time is indeed of the essence, so I urge you to make haste." The communication link closed, and Donovan leaned back in his chair, exhaling a long, shaky breath. He had taken the first step, but he knew the true challenge lay ahead. Convincing the Vanthali leadership to trust him and accept his help would be the key to saving their civilization from total annihilation. With a renewed sense of determination, Donovan turned his attention back to the controls, guiding the monitoring station down toward the Vanthali homeworld. The fate of an entire species now rested on his shoulders, and he was resolved to not let them down. As the monitoring station descended through the turbulent atmosphere of the Vanthali homeworld, Michael Donovan felt a growing sense of unease. The once vibrant planet now lay in ruin, its cities crumbling and its skies choked with swirling debris. The scale of the destruction was even more devastating up close. Donovan's fingers danced across the controls, expertly guiding the aging station through the treacherous conditions. He could see the remnants of the Vanthali's advanced infrastructure scattered across the landscape. Massive power conduits, orbital platforms, and vast industrial complexes, all lying in ruin. "Computer, scan for any signs of survivors and viable power sources we can utilize," he commanded, his voice taut with urgency. Scanning. Minimal life signs detected, mostly clustered around the primary continental landmass. Power grids in that region appear to be the only ones still operational, albeit barely. Donovan's brow furrowed as he studied the sensor data. The Vanthali's entire civilization had been brought to its knees, their once mighty cities reduced to rubble. He knew that time was running out, and the stakes had never been higher. "Plot a course for the primary power grid, maximum speed," he said, his gaze fixed on the holographic displays. "We need to get there as quickly as possible and assess the damage." The station's engines roared to life, propelling the battered vessel forward with a desperate urgency. Donovan braced himself as the craft navigated the treacherous debris field, weaving between crumbling orbital platforms and shattered spacecraft. As they approached the primary power grid, Donovan's heart sank. The once imposing structures were barely holding together, their systems flickering and unstable. If they failed completely, the Vanthali would be plunged into total darkness, with no hope of survival. "Computer, scan the power grid for any signs of functionality," he said, his voice tinged with anxiety. The AI's response was grim. "The primary reactor cores have suffered catastrophic damage. Without immediate intervention, the entire system will collapse within the next 12 hours. Donovan's hands clenched the armrests of his chair, his knuckles turning white. "Can we restore power manually? Bypass the damaged components?" "Negative. The level of damage is too extensive, and the system is too interconnected. Any attempt to jury-rig a solution would be exceedingly risky and likely result in a total system failure." Donovan's mind raced, searching for a viable solution. He knew that the Vanthali were a technologically advanced species, but their power grid had been the linchpin of their civilization. Without it, they were utterly helpless. "There has to be something we can do," he muttered, his gaze sweeping across the displays. "Some way to buy them more time, to stabilize the system until we can enact a permanent solution." The AI remained silent, its protocols preventing it from directly endorsing a course of action that would violate the Prime Directive. But Donovan was undeterred, his determination fueled by the desperation of the Vanthali's plight. "Computer, prepare the station for a high-risk maneuver," he said, his voice resolute. "I'm going to attempt a direct power transfer to the grid, using our own systems as a temporary backup." "Michael, I must caution against this course of action," the AI replied, its tone cautious. "Interfering directly with the Vanthali's infrastructure could have catastrophic consequences, both for them and for your own people." Donovan shook his head firmly. "I don't have a choice. Computer, if I don't do this, the Vanthali will be doomed. I won't let an entire civilization perish because of our own protocols." With a resigned sigh, the AI responded, "Acknowledged. Initiating power transfer sequence. But I must stress that the risks are substantial, and the potential fallout could be dire." Donovan's expression hardened with determination. "I'm aware of the risks, but I have to try. The fate of the Vanthali is in my hands now, and I won't let them down." As the station's powerful systems began to redirect energy towards the Vanthali's crumbling grid, Donovan held his breath, watching anxiously for any sign of stabilization. The fate of an entire civilization hung in the balance, and he knew that if this gamble failed, there would be no second chance. With his heart pounding in his chest, Donovan steered the monitoring station closer, praying that his risky maneuver would be enough to buy the Vanthali the time they so desperately needed. As the monitoring station's power systems strained to maintain the critical energy transfer, Michael Donovan watched the holographic displays with bated breath. The Vanthali's primary power grid was hanging by a thread, its damaged components barely holding together under the increased load. "Computer, status report," Donovan said, his voice terse. "The power transfer is stabilizing the grid for now, but the Vanthali systems are still in a dangerously fragile state," the AI responded. "Without a permanent solution, this temporary fix will not hold for long." Donovan's gaze shifted to the devastated landscape below, his heart sinking at the sight of the once vibrant cities now reduced to rubble. The Vanthali were a proud and advanced civilization, and to see them on the brink of total annihilation was a sobering, humbling experience. "I need to make contact with the Vanthali leadership again," he said, his expression resolute. "They have to understand that I'm here to help, not to conquer or subjugate them." The AI responded with a hint of caution. "Michael, I must remind you of the risks involved in directly interfering with the affairs of another species. The consequences could be far-reaching and catastrophic, not just for the Vanthali, but for your own people as well." Donovan's jaw tightened, but he knew the AI was right. The Prime Directive, the fundamental ethical code that governed his people's interactions with other civilizations, was not to be taken lightly. By breaking it, he was treading on dangerous ground. "I understand the risks, computer," he said, his voice low. "But I can't just stand by and watch an entire species perish. Not when I have the power to help them." With a resigned sigh, the AI replied, "Very well." Establishing a secure communication link with the Vanthali leadership, the holographic display crackled to life, and the weary face of High Counselor Xylara appeared before Donovan. "Michael Donovan, your actions have bought us some time, but our situation remains dire," Xylara said, her voice tinged with a mixture of gratitude and wariness. "What is your plan to save my people?" Donovan took a deep breath, choosing his words carefully. "High Counselor, I know you are understandably skeptical of my intentions, but I assure you that my only goal is to help your civilization survive this crisis. I have the knowledge and resources to assist you in restoring your power grid and stabilizing your environment. But I need your full cooperation and trust to succeed." Xylara's eyes narrowed, and Donovan could see the internal struggle playing out on the alien's face. And what would this assistance entail? Would it involve the subjugation of my people, the exploitation of our resources, or the imposition of your own cultural values? Donovan shook his head emphatically. "No, High Counselor, nothing of the sort. I'm simply offering to share my people's technological expertise and provide whatever resources are necessary to help your civilization recover. In return, all I ask is that you allow me and my crew to work alongside your people, to collaborate and learn from each other." The line went silent, and Donovan held his breath, waiting anxiously for Xylara's response. He knew that he was asking the Vanthali leader to take a tremendous leap of faith, to trust the words of a complete stranger in the face of such overwhelming devastation. After what felt like an eternity, Xylara's expression softened, and a glimmer of hope appeared in her eyes. "Very well, Michael Donovan. I will grant you and your crew access to our remaining facilities, and we will work together to restore our power grid and stabilize our environment. However, know this: if your actions in any way threaten the sovereignty or well-being of the Vanthali Confederation, we will not hesitate to defend ourselves, even in our weakened state." Donovan nodded solemnly. "I understand, High Counselor. You have my word that I will do everything in my power to help your people without any ulterior motives or hidden agendas. We are in this together, and I will not let you down." Xylara's gaze softened slightly, and she gave a solemn nod in return. "Then let us begin, Michael Donovan. Time is of the essence, and the fate of my people hangs in the balance." As the communication link closed, Donovan turned his attention back to the controls, his expression grim but determined. The Vanthali had placed their trust in him, and he was resolved to prove himself worthy of that trust, no matter the cost. With a deep breath, he began issuing orders to the AI, preparing the monitoring station for landing and coordinating the deployment of his crew to assist the Vanthali in their desperate struggle for survival. The monitoring station touched down amidst the ruins of the Vanthali's primary power grid, its engines kicking up clouds of dust and debris. Michael Donovan wasted no time, springing into action as soon as the hatch opened. "Computer, dispatch the repair crews and have them start assessing the damage," he ordered, his voice filled with urgency. "We need to get this grid back online as quickly as possible." "Acknowledged," the AI responded. "Crew teams are deploying to the designated access points. Preliminary scans indicate the damage is even more extensive than anticipated." Donovan's brow furrowed as he studied the holographic schematics. The Vanthali's power infrastructure was a complex web of interconnected systems, and the cascading failures had left it in a precarious state. Any misstep could trigger a catastrophic overload, plunging the entire planet into darkness. "High Counselor Xylara, I need your people's full cooperation and expertise," Donovan said, opening a secure communication channel. "My crew and I can provide the technical support, but we'll need your engineers and technicians to guide us through the repairs." Xylara's face appeared on the display, her expression grim but resolute. "You have it, Michael Donovan. My people are ready to assist in any way they can. Time is of the essence, and we cannot afford any setbacks." With a nod, Donovan turned to the nearest repair crew, barking out instructions. "Prioritize the primary reactor stabilization. We need to get those core systems back online before the backup power fails." The Vanthali technicians sprang into action, their nimble fingers dancing across the damaged controls as they worked in tandem with Donovan's crew. The air was thick with tension, every second ticking by like an eternity. As the repair efforts progressed, Donovan couldn't help but marvel at the Vanthali's technical prowess. Despite the devastating damage, their engineers displayed a level of skill and resourcefulness that rivaled his own people's capabilities. It was a humbling reminder that even the most advanced civilizations could be brought to their knees by unforeseen catastrophes. Suddenly, a series of alarm klaxons blared, and Donovan whirled around to the nearest display. "Computer, what's happening?" he demanded, his heart racing. "The secondary power conduits have experienced a critical failure," the AI reported, its voice calm but urgent. "The backup systems are being overwhelmed, and the primary reactor is in danger of a complete meltdown." Donovan cursed under his breath, his mind racing to find a solution. "Divert all available power from the station to stabilize the reactor. We can't let it go critical." The station's systems whirred to life, channeling a massive surge of energy into the Vanthali's crumbling infrastructure. Donovan watched anxiously as the readings fluctuated, praying that the temporary fix would hold. The reactor is stabilizing, but the power drain is unsustainable, the AI warned. We need to find a permanent solution, or the entire grid will collapse. Silara's voice crackled over the comm, her tone tinged with desperation. Michael Donovan, our people are working as quickly as they can, but the damage is too extensive. We are running out of time. Donovan's gaze swept across the scene, taking in the frantic activity of the repair crews and the growing sense of hopelessness on the Vanthali's faces. They were fighting a losing battle, and he knew it. But then, a spark of inspiration flashed in his mind. High Counselor, I have an idea, but it's risky. I need your people to divert all available power to the main reactor, and I'll try to bypass the damaged components using the station's systems. Silara's eyes widened, and for a moment, Donovan saw a glimmer of hope in her expression. Do it, Michael Donovan. We have no other choice. With a resolute nod, Donovan turned to the nearest technician. Reroute all power to the primary reactor, now. I'm going to try to link our systems directly and stabilize the grid. The Vanthali engineer hesitated for a split second, then sprang into action, his fingers flying across the controls. Donovan held his breath, praying that his plan would work. The station's systems whirred to life, channeling a massive surge of energy into the Vanthali's power grid. Donovan watched the readings with bated breath, his heart pounding in his chest. Slowly, the fluctuating readings began to stabilize, and the reactor's core temperature started to drop. Donovan felt a surge of hope, but he knew they weren't out of the woods yet. Keep the power flowing, he shouted, his voice filled with determination. We need to maintain the connection until the grid is fully stabilized. The Vanthali technicians worked tirelessly, their faces etched with concentration. Donovan stood by, his gaze fixed on the displays, willing the system to hold. Seconds turned to minutes, and Donovan felt the weight of the universe on his shoulders. The fate of an entire civilization hung in the balance, and he was determined not to let them down. Finally, the readings began to stabilize, and the alarm klaxons fell silent. Donovan let out a shaky breath, his muscles aching from the tension. It's working, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. We've done it. Silara's face appeared on the display, her expression a mixture of relief and disbelief. Michael Donovan, you and your people have saved us. I don't know how to thank you. Donovan offered a weary smile, his own exhaustion evident. Let's just focus on getting your people the help they need. There's still a lot of work to be done. As the Vanthali technicians continued their efforts, Donovan knew that the true test lay ahead. They had bought the Vanthali people some time, but the road to recovery would be long and arduous. Still, he was determined to see this through, no matter the cost. As the Vanthali power grid slowly stabilized under the combined efforts of Michael Donovan's crew and the alien technicians, a cautious optimism began to take root. The immediate crisis had been averted, but the scale of the damage was still overwhelming. Donovan stood before the holographic displays, his gaze sweeping across the data streams as he conferred with High Counselor Silara. The primary reactor is holding steady, and we've managed to restore power to the main population centers, he reported, his voice tinged with exhaustion. But the environmental damage is extensive, and your people are in desperate need of food, water, and medical supplies. Silara's expression was grave, the weight of her people's suffering etched into the lines of her face. We are grateful for your assistance, Michael Donovan, but the road to recovery will be long and arduous. Our cities are in ruins, our resources depleted, and our population dwindling by the day. Donovan nodded solemnly, his mind already racing to formulate a comprehensive plan of action. Then we must work quickly to establish emergency relief efforts and begin the process of rebuilding. My people have the capability to provide the necessary aid and support, but will need your intimate knowledge of your planet's needs and resources. The Vanthali leader's eyes widened, a glimmer of hope sparking in their depths. You would be willing to commit your people's resources to our recovery, even after all we've been through. Donovan offered a reassuring smile. "High Counselor, I gave you my word that I would do everything in my power to help your people, and I intend to keep that promise. Your survival is of the utmost importance to me, and my people are prepared to stand alongside yours in this monumental task." Xylara's expression softened, and she inclined her head in a gesture of gratitude. "Then we shall work together, Michael Donovan, to rebuild our shattered civilization and ensure a brighter future for the Vanthali." Over the following weeks and months, Donovan and his crew worked tirelessly alongside the Vanthali people, pooling their resources and expertise to tackle the daunting challenges that lay ahead. They focused first on restoring essential infrastructure, repairing power grids, re-establishing water and food distribution systems, and clearing the debris that choked the cities. As the Vanthali's basic needs were met, Donovan turned his attention to the long-term recovery plan. He knew that simply restoring the old order would not be enough. The Vanthali needed to rethink their approach to power generation, environmental protection, and societal resilience to ensure that a catastrophe of this magnitude never happened again. Together, the human and alien teams pored over schematics, ran simulations, and brainstormed innovative solutions. Donovan marveled at the Vanthali's ability to adapt and learn, their innate curiosity and problem-solving skills complementing his own people's technical expertise. Slowly but surely, the Vanthali homeworld began to show signs of recovery. Homes were rebuilt, factories came back online, and the population began to rebuild their sense of hope and community. Donovan watched the progress with a sense of profound satisfaction, his heart swelling with pride at the sight of the Vanthali's resilience. This was no longer just a mission to save a dying civilization. It had become a true partnership, a collaboration between two vastly different species united in the pursuit of a brighter future. As the final stages of the recovery efforts drew to a close, Donovan summoned the courage to broach a topic that had been weighing heavily on his mind. "High Counselor Xylara, I understand that my people's involvement in your civilization's affairs has been a delicate matter," he said, his voice measured. "And I want to assure you that we have no intention of imposing our will or interfering with your sovereignty. Our goal has always been to help, not to dominate." Xylara's gaze was thoughtful, her expression unreadable. "I appreciate your candor, Michael Donovan. And I must admit, I was initially wary of your intentions, given the magnitude of the assistance you have provided. But through our work together, I have come to see that your people's values and ours are not so different." She paused, a small smile tugging at the corners of her mouth. "In fact, I believe that our peoples could have much to learn from one another, and that a lasting alliance could be of great benefit to both our civilizations." Donovan felt a surge of relief and excitement, his heart swelling with hope. "Then I would be honored to explore the possibility of further cooperation and exchange, High Counselor. The Vanthali have much to offer, and I believe our peoples can forge a truly remarkable partnership." As the two leaders shook hands, Donovan knew that this was just the beginning of a new chapter, one filled with the promise of mutual understanding, cultural exchange, and a shared vision for a better future, not just for the Vanthali, but for all the beings in the cosmos. The weight of his past actions had been lifted, replaced by a profound sense of purpose and belonging. He had not only saved an entire civilization from the brink of extinction, but had also forged a lasting bond that would shape the course of their shared destiny. With a renewed sense of determination, Donovan turned his gaze toward the stars, his mind already racing with the possibilities that lay ahead.